Or that was his first ever career field goal attempt, so it couldn't have happened under more strenuous circumstances. You missed an extra point.
Yeah, I did. My mind after that, I was a little bit upset, but then I came right back up, and I was like, I got to do this for my team, and the team needs me, and I had to do it for the team at all costs. So it was amazing. After I kicked that, I felt really energetic, and I turned around and I saw my whole team coming to me, and that really made me really happy. I did it for my team, and my team had my back, so that's all I needed.
Whether we made it or lost it, it was going to be a great football game anyway. We're going to have things to work on, and I'm just so proud of that whole unit for stepping up in that moment and putting it through.
It hurts. Obviously, we want to be the number one team in the state. We had our chance there, had them on the ropes, and it didn't come through. But I'll tell you what, we'll be back to fight another day. There's no doubt about it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And I'm your host, Sean Patrick Bowley. With me, as always, is Pete Paguaga. What's up, Pete?
Nothing much. Just
nothing much.
Trying to get through. It was chaos, but I wasn't at much of the chaos this weekend. You were, and I don't want to spoil it. We'll wait till Sean talks about it, but just a real dreary weekend, very wet, still very wet. A lot of dampness. I don't know. It was a weird week for sure. Obviously, the last Alliance week. Last big Alliance week, thank God, so we can get back into some of these conference games that are just so bad. You're looking at schedules, you're like, oh, this team's 2-1 now, but they'll probably be 8-1 till they get to Thanksgiving. Yeah. So let's just fast forward to then, because who really cares? But
I would be all for Alliance games every week if that's the way they set up how you get into the playoffs. You got to play certain Alliance games. Yeah, that's how I would like to do. They are fun. They're really well matched. But in the end of the day, what does it all mean? Because now your teams like Fairfield Prep looking at 0-3, maybe even 0-4. Who knows? But anyway, it was a great, crazy, wild week. Well, where else can we start? But between Greenwich, Maloney, Southington, Staples, you name it. There were some just absolutely fantastic games this weekend, and a lot of things were cleared up, but also not. It's also transitive property week, where you sit there and you look at teams that who beat who and what. Now you have 3 games into the books. And, away we go on that. For example, I'll give you a good one, Pete, off the top of my head. We saw Hand beat Fairfield Prep. Bunnell beat Hand. And then last week, Berlin just thumped Bunnell. We had on Coach Ty Jenkins, we must be the kiss of death, because they got absolutely, I don't want to say absolutely obliterated, but they got obliterated by Berlin. There's plenty of other games like that. Ludlowe beating Hamden, which beat Trumbull, and Hamden also, this is just a crazy week. We saw lots of weird scores. We saw lots of safeties. Who knew? Safety is one. They even decided a game. That was the only scoring.
That's the only scoring of the game. Yeah, they scored the lowest amount of points you can score in a football game and win.
It was just a wild and crazy week. But the big talk of the week obviously was up at Falcon Field. You were excited about it, but you sent me there. Thank you, because it was the best game of the year by far to date. This is the standard now. Greenwich, the number 1 ranked team in the state, going into the belly of the beast, Falcon Field, a house of horrors. Sometimes even from Maloney, as we saw with Glastonbury last year. But last year, a similar game. Yeah, they were ranked number 3, but this time Greenwich, they're facing the number 1 team in Greenwich, and a big chance for Maloney to have its second big FCIAC victory in as many years. Last year they beat Darien down there. Now they get number 1 Greenwich coming into their spot. And it was a beautiful night up at Falcon Field. Just like last year, it was everything this was built to be. Packed house, game of the week. I have all kinds of love, Pete, for the Greenwich cheerleaders, who had a great sign. It's time for a Maloney sandwich. Apparently, their coach told me that it was kind of a play on Subway. They had a nice little thing, but the problem was they didn't quite hold it. It was so long, they couldn't hold it up, so Greenwich just kind of walked through it. Meanwhile, a little bit more economical on the Maloney side. But on the field, look, it was plenty of haymakers. Greenwich was clearly determined to stop All-Stater Dante Kelly from doing his thing. That was no problem, Pete, for Ethan Nedinsky, who took what they gave him, and what they gave him was plenty of Jesus Martell, who caught 7 passes for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns, getting them started here with a touchdown catch on 4th and goal. Greenwich lost your boy, George Von Balakis, on the first series of the game. That's no problem because Ian Kim and Brandon August did a nice job filling in. Tim responded by sending up a Grillo touchdown and then scored another later with a nice touchdown run at the goal line. But on the second touchdown, Pete, Greenwich missed the extra point. And Coach Tony Morello said his kicker, Eric Perino, secured the job in week 1 when he made every single one of his extra points against Fairfield Prep. But now that's not going to come back to bite them here, right? No, not at all. Maloney goes up 14-13 after another great Martell catch. But Greenwich scores on Kin's second touchdown run for a 20-14 lead at halftime. Greenwich defense in the second half stepping up, including Noah Steele with a nice batted down pass earlier. And his pickoff here leads to an August touchdown run, and Greenwich up 2 scores, 27-14. You're thinking, all right, well, now the number 1 team is going to kind of pin back its ear and roll past this. No. Maloney with a quick response, a great catch by Marquise Ward down to the 1, sets up Zakai Moore's touchdown run. Greenwich only up 27-21 after 3. Time running out now. Maloney backed up on its own 7. After a few stops, they skipped an 11-play, 93-yard drive. And there's your boy, Pete Kelly, with the touchdown catch and the extra point for a 28-27 Maloney lead. Donald Highsmith has a nice sack on 3rd down. He played great. And then a team swarm on 4th down. Greenwich stopped with about 2 and change left. They are able to get the clock down with 1 minute remaining. And all they need is a 1st down, Pete, but they could not get it. Kevin Frederick decided he was going to try and get the 1st down, but on 4th down, the pass is incomplete. Thought he had a nice call. Greenwich takes over with about a minute left, needing to go get at least within field goal range. Rocco Grillo hits 5 passes, 53 yards. The last to Brandon August, who gets out of bounds with 0.5 seconds left. Now, Morello did a lot of lobbying with the referees. He was marching out on the field several times to kind of ask, what's going on here? Why is that clock running down? What's going on? And I guess because of this, he's able to get it so that it was 0.5 seconds left. And a lot of people are like, well, why did the scorekeeper, how did that happen? Whatever happens, 0.5 seconds left. They're at the 25. I'm thinking they're going to throw Hail Mary, given the fact that their kicker missed an extra point. Nope, they call on Perino again, and he hammers this ball through the uprights and had another 10 yards on it. And Greenwich pulls this one out of their rear ends, 30-28. Just an absolute classic at Falcon Field. And even look at the Greenwich players there helping their counterparts up. You saw Pete Von Balakis pick up his guy. You see some of the other guys running out there to help their guy. It was just an absolute, lots of respect on both sides. And here is some of the heroes after, including Perino with just a great kick. He was behind Sergot Boone last year, and a former soccer player, wasn't really getting a lot out of that. And here he is talking about that a little bit.
And yeah, it came down to the final half second when number 37 comes up big.
The team was depending on me, and I made sure that I had kicked as hard as I possibly could, and I still made that right.
How far did you feel that? What was your range as far as like?
I felt like that was pretty light for me because even before when I was injured, I was still able to kick 40 yards. So I still thought that was pretty easy for me. So not a challenge for me.
There was no doubt about that. You missed an extra point.
Yeah, I did. My mind after that, I was a little bit upset, but then came right back up, and I was like, I got to do this for my team, and the team needs me, and I had to do it for the team at all costs. So it was amazing. After I kicked that, I felt really energetic, and I turned around and I saw my whole team coming to me, and that really made me really happy. And I was I did it for my team, and my team had my back, so that's all I needed.
That was his first ever career field goal attempt, so it couldn't have happened under more strenuous circumstances. But he's a great kid. He was in the weight room all off season, and I'm so happy he had that moment, and he gets to celebrate it with his teammates. Whether we made it or lost it, it was going to be a great football game anyway. We're going to have things to work on, and I'm just so proud of that whole unit for stepping up in that moment and putting it through.
I said, I told them before the week started, win or lose, we got to come back on Saturday and Sunday and still have hopefully 10 more games left. So, same thing. We got to learn from this and get better, and, we got to, make less mistakes. We got to get that first down there at the end. That's disappointing. It hurts. Obviously, we want to be the number one team in the state. We had our chance there, had them on the ropes, and it didn't come through. But I'll tell you what, we'll be back to fight another day. There's no doubt about it. We'll be ready next week, and we'll just keep fighting and trying to keep getting better. Hopefully, we have 10 more games still left. But for us to go toe-to-toe with Class Double L, that's a good, that's a really good team, obviously, and hopefully that prepares us for winning the state championship.
You saw afterwards that was Tony Morello from Greenwich, and Kevin Frederick said, listen, we'll be back, no big deal, but crushing loss for them. Again, it's not a huge deal, but Pete, it was just an epic game, and thanks for sending me, pretty much.
It just made more sense in terms of like driving distance for both of us, but I kind of regretted it. Granted, I had no idea what was going on at that game because Masuk is like the worst. Masuk High School is the worst place to exist with a cell phone if you try to get anything out of there. I mean, just an absolute disaster of a place that is just horrifying. I hated it. Anyway, I didn't know what was happening. By the time I walked to my car, my Twitter just like exploded. And all of a sudden you're seeing all these crazy scores, obviously including the Greenwich Maloney one. I kind of feel bad for Maloney in a sense. Like, yeah, Kevin might say no biggie. They're still looking for that defining win, right? They won a state title. Cool. They beat Windsor. Okay. They beat Darien, they beat an FCIAC team in the Alliance last year. They beat Darien, a Darien team that didn't make the playoffs. Right. And now they're right here neck and neck. Oh, then they lose to New Canaan in the finals by 3. Great game. Could argue Maloney was the better team. And then they come here and they 0.5 seconds on the clock and they lose to Greenwich. Like, Kevin might say no biggie, but I think deep down it's going to eat him. Because that was a game that they very easily could have won. And they're still looking for that big statement win for across the state. Yeah, they beat Southington last year, who was the number 1 team. That's a CCC team. I think they're looking for that big.
Well, they did beat Darien
win
last
across
year.
the state.
They did beat Darien.
Darien's not a good. That's not a good Darien.
But that was it was 7-3. It wasn't nothing.
They were 6-4.
Oh, was it 6-4? I thought they were 7.
They were 6-4, and they got shut out by St. Joe's in the opener. Like Darien, they weren't. They're not going in.
It wasn't the number 1 team in the state. It wasn't the number 1 team in the state. Granted, they were ranked at the time, if I remember. They were still ranked.
Maloney was ranked higher in that game,
right?
Because I remember saying something to Maloney fans. They're like, "Stop underrating us." I'm like, "You're voted higher." But like, I just think they're still missing that defining win. But that is a great game for them. A lot of coaches. There's no such thing as moral losses or whatever the heck the thing is. But I think Maloney could take a lot out of a lot away from that game. They should hold their heads high because that is a great team that they played against. And honestly, I mean, is Maloney a favorite now in L?
I would say so. After that performance, look, they got some dudes. Obviously, Kelly, first team All-Stater. He deserved every bit of attention that Greenwich put on him. They were swarming him. He really did not do a whole lot until the end when they needed him to catch a touchdown pass. But Jesus Martel, is it Jesus or is it Jesus?
It's not like going Peter.
It might be both. Anyway, but Martel had a great game. Obviously, 7 catches for 135, 2 touchdowns. The guys on the defensive, especially Highsmith, running around out there, number 25. There were plenty of guys up front. They got a good team. I thought the quarterback played pretty well, despite the pickoff that led to the second Greenwich touchdown to put them up 27-14 in the second half. Other than that, it was great play. I thought he played pretty well. Even Greenwich, Greenwich being able to sustain a running game. They got, August had a lot of great passes. Grillo threw for over 200 yards and change. It was just a classic high school football game. And, really, I would say right now, Maloney is looking pretty solid in Class L. We'll see, what New Canaan brings, maybe Shelton, obviously, those are 2 very good teams. They are very as good, if not better than both those teams. So certainly they're looking pretty good. Now that we've talked about Greenwich, number one, let's go through the top 10 poll, Pete. Let's kind of knock this off because a lot of the teams this week obviously featured in the Alliance games. Obviously number 2, West Haven comes in there. They jump all the way up after wiping out Ridgefield. In their game, wasn't even close. Ridgefield's been kind of banged up. So West Haven kind of gets that Ridgefield monkey off their back. Ridgefield been always, remember they beat them in 2016 down there to kind of upset them in the first round. So West Haven undefeated. They're screaming at us to give us all their attention. Guys, you will get your chance this week because you are going to Finn Stadium, your pals, over to see the Gales in probably one of the biggest games, if not the biggest game of the week. So we'll see plenty of West Haven going forward. Number 3 is Cheshire. They wiped out Glastonbury 27-0. Jeffrey doing things again. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. That's Jeffrey Gonzalez running for 157 yards and making 8 tackles and having an interception. Have a day, kid, in that game, 27-0. Number 4 is Maloney. They only fall. You seem to think that they should be a little higher than 4. They fall back after losing by 2 to Greenwich.
I moved Maloney up. So I had Maloney at 4 last week, moved him up to 3 in my poll this week. And I filled in to do the poll. And I was kind of surprised to see how far Maloney dropped on a lot of ballots. They were half a second away from beating the number 1 team. Half a second left. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I'm going to say, what could they have done better? Greenwich misses a 42-yard field goal in high school. That's not Ty Groff. Okay? A 42-yarder in high school is very hard. And that's what it took to beat Maloney. And they get no love in the poll?
I would say no. I would say no love.
They dropped.
They got
less love. They got less love than last week.
Not from you guys. They got more love.
From me, yes. The overall poll, they dropped. That's
the way it works, the way voters work, and I do not agree with them, is that if you lose, they're knocking you out. They're knocking you back. A lot of teams just knock you out. So that's a flaw. I don't understand it, but that's the reasoning of a lot of voters. We can talk about one of those teams that takes advantage of that later in the poll. It's a disgusting schedule. When you talk about these teams that they lose, despite the schedule they make, I still vote Fairfield Prep.
So you and I think, are the only 2 that vote Fairfield Prep.
Anyway, moving on. Number 5 is Newtown. They're 3-0. Is it a surprising 3-0? Maybe. If you looked at their schedule to start the season, I don't think many people are saying that the Nighthawks are going to be 3-0, but they were down 14 in the first half against Trumbull, a team that really needed this win, Pete, as you said last week. And, they went to the ground game. J.J. Haddock, Aiden Paulus, Jaden Cordova, each scoring a touchdown, and then Cordova's touchdown with 7:28 remaining, putting them ahead for good in that game with 21 answered points. The defense getting involved here a little bit. They had a pickoff. They made him punt 3 times, and Jack Chappell with a sack late in that game to force a 4th down. And Trumbull, reeling right now, and Newtown just skyrocketing all the way to number 5. As you said, you're a little surprised. Are you surprised by Newtown, Pete?
I think being 3-0, looking at their schedule, is a surprise, but great for Coach Farina. Goodbye, Trumbull. Maybe we'll talk to you. We'll talk about you guys the week of Thanksgiving. Maybe. Bye.
Yeah, that's a tough one, and they got plenty of tough games left.
Yeah,
Trumbull
it's not an easy schedule.
No, they're going to have to do some real big soul searching here. Right now it seems like with one phase is working, the other phase isn't, and the other phase is working, the other phase isn't. It's just, they can't seem to put up 4 quarters together.
Yeah, and Trumbull's schedule hasn't been easy. We joke and jest and stuff like that, but Trumbull's schedule, Hamden, that game was crazy. Newtown in the 3rd game. And like you said, Sean, it doesn't get easier for them, but great for Newtown, great for Coach Farina. There were a lot of people, when his hiring got announced that were kind of a little bit perplexed, and it's nice. I'm very happy for him to see that, they're sitting there at number 5. They haven't been ranked that high in a poll since 2019.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think so. Maybe they might've been, or I don't know. Number 6 is Shelton. They beat up on Wethersfield 44-22. That was the NBC 30 game of the week over there at Finn Stadium. And maybe you guys should have waited. Maybe you guys should have been somewhere else. Who knows? But number 7, Ansonia Mackay Ingram ran for 147 yards. Preston Zabina caught 144 yards of quarterback Matteo Sorrentino's 203 yards passing. They beat Watertown. Another big game was the unranked Staples topping number 2 Southington in the game. I think we both picked, Pete, 34-27. The Wreckers, big bounce back after the getting just smoked by West Haven in the first week, rallying from 13 down behind brother combo Caleb and Nathan Smith. Caleb threw 2 touchdowns to Nate in the second half and ran, as you said, Pete, last week. Great runner, ran for a 49-yard touchdown. And Southington also putting up ridiculous numbers. CJ Di Benedetto, 24-38 passes, 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he also had a pickoff. Rashard Williams continues to kind of make his mark on this Southington team, really coming into his own, catching 8 passes, 190 yards and a touchdown. But good for the Wreckers, really coming back strong here, Pete. 34-27 over the number 2 ranked team. Staples now comes in at number 8 after knocking off Southington.
Yeah, good for Staples. I mean, they are a good team. They've definitely rallied. The West Haven game, like it was week 1. If those two teams ever meet again in week 11, in the playoffs or something, it might be a much different game. But good for Staples to rally the win 2 in a row. Great comeback on the road. Playing at Fontana Field's never easy. Southington had a chance. I mean, they had it. They were up 2 scores, tried to make it back late, but weren't able to. And now Southington's going to kind of cruise into November when they get Maloney and Cheshire in 2 of their last 3 games. I mean, the rest of their schedule is not really super frightening. So Southington will stay here in the top 10. They'll float until, what is that, 7 games? They'll be 6-1 heading into the Maloney game. So,
get your tickets now for that one. It was funny. I'm sitting when I was walking out of the stadium at Falcon Field, I was talking to, Tony Morello, who, made one of the funny, actually, now that I think about it, it's hysterical. I asked him how the bus ride was up there because, I asked him what time they left. They apparently left at 2:30. His bus left first. They came in 2 buses. His bus left first. And it arrived somehow. He's after a good half hour after the one that went second. Apparently, he said, and actually, I'll let him tell you.
Bus ride's going to be a lot more fun than the bus ride up. Our driver had to stop for a bathroom break 2 hours into the trip. So, to be honest, though, 3 weeks into a newborn, that bus ride was probably the most consecutive hours of sleep I've had. So I actually relished in that moment a little bit, was kind of geared up for it.
Anyway, so so good for him. I'm sure he got a lot of sleep on the way back to, it's funny how Friday nights maybe could be a refuge for a dad needing a little break, So, but anyway, so I was walking out with him and I was telling him, hey, he wanted to know what the scores were. Now he won a game. Usually if you lose a game like that, you don't want to hear anything. You don't want to hear what happened. But he wanted to know what the scores were going on, and he was excited about a lot of the returns from the FCIAC coming out. And, the FCIAC, after a bad week 1, had a great week 2. Alliance week 2. Had a great week 3. It wasn't completely great because Trumbull loses and Danbury got smoked. But, that kind of carry over. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but carry over into Saturday where number 10 Windsor was coming down. They've been screaming, Pete. Windsor has been screaming, where's the love? Are you coming to our games? What's going on? All right, so we gave you a story on Robinson, the quarterback. He's going to be a good one. Buchanan got knocked out of the poll just by not even, they won their game. They got knocked out. So here comes Windsor, comes to Dunning Field, and got to play New Canaan. And, lots of rain, lots of wind. Not a lot of people showed up for this one. The students did show up, at least for a half. And, from the start, Pete, Windsor seemed to be in control for a game. They got a pair of touchdown passes from A.J. Robinson to Max Copeland, and one that came after a New Canaan fumble. But New Canaan, although they don't, when you look at them and see how they play, they don't really have any guys that just absolutely scare you other than Alex Benedetto. But they are so fundamentally sound, and the defense has really been playing well. They tie the game on a Luke Reed touchdown, and they held offensively challenged Windsor in the second half. Did not score a point. Now, Windsor was missing Kashmir Lewis and Damien Sparrow, but they only held them to 3 first downs in the second half and had 2 turnovers. Meanwhile, they scored 21 unanswered points to pull out of there 33-12. Reed caught a touchdown pass from Luke Robinson. Andrew Esposito caught a TD pass, and Alex Benevento sets up a TD run with a pickoff. He also caps him with a short run. So lots of trickery from Lou Marinelli. I don't know if he needed it, especially in the second half, but here he is talking about the one of their plays. They call it the Trojan horse, where everyone kind of scrambles when they go into a huddle. They run out and they confuse the defense. And he attributed that to the late great Bo Hickey.
And you can definitely put that. In Bo Hickey, who passed away a few months ago. That was one of his things, the Trojan horse, where they get together. And I said, I don't think it's going to work. No, it's going to work. It's going to work. And sure enough, I mean, it really came out well. So that was good.
There were a few times he tried a little bit of trickery. I call it.
He tried here and there, and some worked and some didn't. So, but I mean, we needed something like that because I'm telling you, they're a good football team. I mean, we were scared to death, to see them. And I have so much respect for their staff and fleet. I mean, it's one of the best staffs, I think, in the state. It really is. And not only are they good coaches, but their kids are gentlemen, and their coaches are gentlemen. I mean, it's really a pleasure, win or lose. It's what's good about high school football, I think.
I mean, I felt very positive going into the second half. I think that, again, I had Kashmir Lewis and Damian Sparrow. That losing those 2 guys really hurt. So guys filling in for them just weren't ready. But Canaan did a great job. I mean, they're a great program. You know what I mean? This is a learning step for our guys who got to fill in when guys are down, and it's just going to make us better.
So Pete, New Canaan, number 10 ranked, dispatches with Windsor. Windsor will have to see them down the road a bit. The cleat legs come on, injuries. They just couldn't get it done on a Saturday.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. I got to come and watch that game. I didn't have to work it, but I came to hang out with you, and I was all aboard the Windsor train. I thought it would be a big week for the CCC, and they let me down. But Windsor, I mean, like you said it. New Canaan is so fundamentally sound. They didn't make many mistakes. You mentioned it during the game. They tackle well. They just tackle well. I mean, and I've said this a bunch. No one adjusts better at halftime than New Canaan. I mean, their coaching staff puts on a show every week with what they're able to do. And, you thought going into half, New Canaan goes for 2.
Yeah.
And you're like, why the heck did they do that? And it was 12-12. Maybe they saw something. They probably saw something. I'm never going to question them. They come out in the second half and, just absolutely obliterate them. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even a game. Even when they were only up by like a score and Windsor had the ball, you really weren't worried. You were like, New Canaan's going to get it back. Probably going to go right down and score. And that's exactly what they did.
Field position was big.
And then speaking of the fans, like you said, like they never have fans stay. Fans down in Fairfield County usually leave at like halftime.
Yeah, listen, the students are usually pretty good, but I went to go to my car to get an extra battery just in case mine ran out, and I see them all leaving. Like, what are we gonna do now? What are you gonna do? They're only up there. It was a tied score. The few kids that were left, they split after the first New Canaan touchdown. All right, that's it. We won. And it was 19-12. So, whatever. It's a Saturday. That's a tough call. Late Saturday game wasn't exactly a noon kickoff. But, I guess everyone had stuff to do. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what. It was pouring out. Maybe go to the movies. Who knows? No, they came. They probably got like their TikTok or their selfie being at the game to say that they were at the game, and then they left. No, a big, I'll say this. In the Greenwich crowd, I took a look at them. The Greenwich crowd, there were enough guys that showed up, but students. That's a hard drive. Well, that's what I was going to say. But that's my point. A lot of Staples going up to Southington, the Alliance creates some great matchups, but again, that's having these big games, you kind of lose something. The high school football experience is supposed to be the local. It's my town against our neighbors. It's my town against the local Catholic school that takes all our kids. Like Holy Cross. We forgot about Holy Cross Naugatuck last week. Oops. But our guy Jet Hall just went off on Holy Cross about saying this was personal for him, and they always take our kids, and we're going to show them, including like his half brother, right, Pete? On that team too. So, jeez.
The block field goal. So you said it made it a little personal for you. In what way?
A lot of my friends go to Holy Cross. My brother goes to Holy Cross, and that's what really makes it so personal. Hometown guys going to a different school, it kind of makes us sick to our stomach because we're a family. We all grew up playing football together. Why are you going to leave us? So, yeah, it's personal. So when we play you, we're going to show you why you shouldn't have left.
Anyway, so I mean that's the Lions games will be great. I do think too much less is more. The less you have of this, the more special they are. If you just keep Lions games, unless you make a league out of it, you lose something in that local flavor. That's I'll continue to.
Yeah, but then even the home team though, like New Canaan, stay, enjoy it. It was a great game. Your team plays so hard and they play so well.
Windsor might as well have been Windsor, Idaho for all they care. Yeah. That's the case. That's true. If it's if it's Greenwich, they ain't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere.
I don't know. We'll see. Don't they? I'm pretty sure Greenwich and New Canaan play this year.
No, I don't think so.
No, they don't. All right, so when does New Canaan? Let's look at New Canaan's schedule. It's the Darien game. Obviously, that's Thanksgiving.
Oh, but, that's what I forgot to tell you. The Darien kids, they showed up. There they are. There they are. Oh my God, there they are. Coming to town to cheer on Windsor. They left at half. No, they leave at halftime. I think so. But
they hung out. We talked to them a little bit in the third quarter.
Okay, well. They did split. It didn't take them long, but they split as well. But I enjoyed them coming to show up. So at least somebody showed up other than, the New Canaan students leaving at time. Anyway. Oh, man. Okay, so that is the top 10 poll, Pete. But that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what just kind of a crazy week it was. Let's jump in and take a look at the Alliance standings. Since we were talking all about this was the last big week of it. There was I think 34-ish games. The SWC had a pretty big week. The SEC, and the FCIAC both with the same records in the first big week. The CCC, which came into the day 1-6, still under 500. They go 13-6. They have just a massive conference. They go 13-16 with a few games. They lost Maloney game. They lost the Southington game. But there were a bunch of games, Pete, that the CCC did win that was big. And you were at one of them down there over there in the black hole that is Monroe's Benedict Field. What happened in that game?
What didn't happen in that game? Let's start there because there were so many touchdowns, just an absurd amount of scores, back and forth, just absolute chaos and craziness. Look, we talked about this game last week. We thought it would be a good game, and we thought Masuk was going to be able to wear down Bloomfield.
Yeah.
That looked like the case. High scoring at halftime. Masuk gets the ball to start the second half. They come out in this run-heavy package, and they go right down the field and score, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, Masuk's up 17. This is going to be really hard to come back from. Then all of a sudden, Masuk forgot how to get a first down. And it just left the door open every drive, and Bloomfield took advantage of it, scoring 24 straight points in the second. Masuk scored at 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Bloomfield scored 24 points the rest of the way to win. And it was just an absolute unbelievable game. Darien Foster really impressed me, the quarterback, threw 4 touchdowns. He is a baller. The Kerr brothers are really good. It's hard. How do you block? How do you cover one and not the other? If you double one, the other one's going to beat you. You single coverage both of them, they're both going to beat you. I mean, Foster has all these, he has all the time in the world. Foster had some really good things to say kind of what he told his team when they were down and how he kept them into it. But I'll let him talk because it was really impressive.
No, at halftime we were down 10 points. I was like, dog, these dudes aren't better than us. We're more conditioned. We're tired. They're tired. It's just whoever got the most heart. I was telling them we got more heart than they do. So we just got to finish. Got to play as a team to the end.
Look, this team, I saw you guys in the finals last year. Chance to come down and win the game. You take penalties, kind of stepping on your own foot. Tonight, same thing. What was different? Because you took that penalty, and then all of a sudden, it didn't faze you guys. You guys went right back down the field, 2 big passes. All of a sudden, you're right in the end zone.
It was just last year. I feel like we just let little stuff affect us too much. We were like, what? It's a flag, whatever. Let's just get that play back. Let's get those yards back on this play, the next play.
And then, Bloomfield coach Ty Outlaw talking about the team's grit and able to fight back in the game and kind of not give up. Obviously it took a long time for them to get there, but it didn't really show late in the game.
I think it was a heavyweight battle. Masuk is a really, really good team. I hope they win the championship in their class, and it was just a dogfight tonight.
You guys are down by 24. You scored the last 24 points of the game. What were you able to do to turn around the third quarter and not have guys, put their head down and stuff?
Well, we felt we could score. It wasn't that, but we had to stop them as well. And we knew that both teams was getting tired, and they was getting tired, and we had to dig a little bit. We feel like our team was in great shape, and they was able to pull it out tonight.
You guys have played in a lot of big games, but to come here on the road and win this one, it's got to feel pretty good. And mean a lot for the program, right?
It feels great. And, shout out to Masuk. Some of these boys here, Mark Hope, and, I played football with when I was in high school. He's number 23. He's a senior. And, I wish this team all the best. They're great kids, and I hope they win it.
I will say this about Bloomfield, and this was very noticeable, and it was noticeable during the class finals last year. It was noticeable during this game. When the going got tough, they just seemed to kind of get in their way, taking some pretty bad penalties, some mental mistakes. And, against maybe a better team, they don't win that game. So that was just something that I noticed while watching Bloomfield. They are so talented, but I feel like if they can clean up those mental mistakes, not taking a false start penalty when you clearly, don't have to, or, kind of penalties like that, I think Bloomfield is a really, really good team. And I think they could do some serious damage in S.
How about Masuk? Didn't they lose their quarterback, Pete?
Yeah, that added to the confusion of no one really knew what went on. So beginning of the game was just all passing. It took forever. And Masuk got the ball first, went right down the field and scored in this running offense. And they took a lot of time off the clock. So I'm sitting there. This is the start of the second half. Yeah, so I'm sitting there thinking maybe they're just looking to control the game. Put the ball in Jason Champagne's hands. Let him control the game. Will control the clock. Clearly, Masuk's not making a stop on defense. Bloomfield's not making a stop on defense. So they run that the entire second half, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, what? Okay, we get it. Like, you're trying to whatever, but now the game is close. Why aren't you throwing the ball? Then we get to the final drive after Bloomfield takes the lead with a minute left, and Robbie Klein's not coming out taking snaps. So clear he got injured at the end of the first half, but we didn't know because it just seemed like they were just coming to just run the clock, control the clock and the game with Jason. And they brought in their freshman quarterback, Jason Champagne's brother. Completed a couple of passes on the final drive before throwing a pick with no time left. But I felt bad for the kid. I talked to him after. I was like, his first varsity snaps are against Bloomfield. That's baptism by fire. But hopefully Klein's okay. Obviously, it was serious enough for him not to come back in the game when it got close. So that could be a major issue for the Panthers going forward.
Masuk, of course, without their coaches still, Steve Christie, the head coach, and Eric Giordano, the assistant coach, still no sign of any word of anything about this investigation wrapping up anytime soon from the Masuk Board of Education. The Monroe Board of Education. So we'll see. We are almost at mid-season and no coaches other than the guys who are there. So hope that gets figured out and soon. Some of the other crazies, we're just going to kind of run through this stuff. some of the craziness that happened this week. I mean, we talked about Bristol Eastern beating Hillhouse 2-0 on safety. How about Fairfield Prep only after scoring 34 points against Hand last week in a loss and against Greenwich 21 points could only muster a safety at Darien. Let's talk about large crowds. They had a great crowd for that game. How many times does Darien play Fairfield Prep in the regular season? And, they had a great crowd there at Darien. Ben Curtis returns a third quarter interception, 47 yards for a touchdown, the only touchdown of the game, to give Darien the lead for good. They made it 7-2. They tacked on a field goal, 10-2. Was there a grand slam in this game? Were they out on the baseball field? I don't know. Darien had 4 pickoffs, great defensive performance. I think Ryan Girolamo had 2, and Briggs McGuckin, there's a name, had 2 as well. Had 1 in addition to that. And Darien with a big win. Fairfield Prep 0-3 though. And it's just, you talk about everyone loves the Alliance. How's the Alliance doing for Fairfield Prep right now? Oof.
McGuckin, I believe his sister is a very good field hockey or lacrosse player for Darien.
I think both.
So I've seen that name before.
Yeah.
But talked to a couple of the Darien kids at the New Canaan game at halftime, just filling me in on what happened. And looked like the Blue Wave defense came to play. Much different performance than they had against McMahon the week before. But 10-2. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. If I ask Darien baseball coach Mike Scott, hey, you guys play prep this spring, will you take a 10-2 win? He'll take that every time. Football, though, it's a real head scratcher. Look, here's the thing. We talked about it earlier on this show. You and I both still vote for Fairfield Prep. I think they are still one of the most talented teams in the state, but you look at that schedule.
Very talented.
Greenwich, then Hand, an overtime loss. Like, Hand, that's a rival program. Like, they're going to compete. And then, obviously, Darien is a good program too, and they just don't have time to take a breath. And that's where this SEC schedule is a bunch of garbage when you compare it to every other conference. They don't have a week to reset and reboot. They don't have the pleasure of going to play a school that they know they are going to beat. That doesn't exist in Tier 1 of the SEC, nope. Even with your Tier 2 crossovers, and that is a bunch of malarkey.
Yep.
That it's BS. It's really what it is. It's because you could sit here and you could look at it and say, looking at New Canaan, right? They came off of the Shelton loss. Well, they went right into Fairfield Ward, who is young and rebuilding. And for New Canaan, that's a great game for them to turn around and say, these are the things that we need to fix. You don't get to do that in the SEC Tier 1. Now, the point system and the extra added points, like if Prep wins out and they go 7-3, they'll get in and they'll be dangerous. But looking at Prep, it's not going to be that easy. They have Cheshire this week. They have Cheshire this week, right?
North Haven after that.
North Haven, then Shelton, Hamden, Xavier, Notre Dame, and West Haven. I can't look at that schedule and confidently say, they're going to win out and go 7-3.
No.
That's not happening. So even with these extra adjusted bonus points, they're not getting into the playoffs.
No, probably not.
Because they don't have gimmies on their schedule like every other conference does.
Again, it needs to be, the number one, the playoff system. If the playoff system was win your league, then this would be great. It's not. It's by points, and there are going to be a ton of Class LL schools that play we've said this a billion times, a ton of Class LL schools, not in the SEC, that are just going to collect a lot more points than they are, and they're going to be fighting clawing, even if they go 6-4, or I doubt it, but it'll be tough. Even 7-3, it'll be tough. So again, it's just the disconnect between here's what the state does and here's what these leagues do. The leagues do
just one league. Just one league.
Well, no. Well, they're starting to. You see it elsewhere. You see it in the NVL. You see it in the CCC.
You see it in the NVL. Yes, they also do it. You're right, but they only play it in conference schedule, so they're really in control of their own destiny, and they play more than one.
It's
crossover
perverse.
Game in the lower division.
More perverse in the SEC.
If I'm Fairfield Prep, I'm making a phone call to Dave Schultz and saying, "Hey, how do we get in the FCIAC? I want a couple of those gimme games that some of your top teams get. Right. This is a travesty. This is an absolute travesty.
Meanwhile, you get things like Hamden and West Haven last year playing SEC Tier 2, not getting the easy schedule you're talking about. And they go to the playoffs 8-2, 9-1. So,
I know there aren't a lot of Fairfield Prep apologists in this state. I'm sure there's a lot of people cheering.
Nobody's crying for Prep.
Oh, yeah, no one's crying for Prep. But you know what? Take off the name at the top of that schedule and tell me that it's not a bunch of nonsense.
Same thing with Shelton. Shelton got a break. They beat Wethersfield. Wethersfield's not looking great this year, so they got a break. But Wethersfield did go to the playoffs last year. So speaking of maybe gimme games, you would think Ludlowe might be one of those gimme games, but the Falcons are 3-0 after just thumping Hamden 35-14 in one of those games. You're like, what? Hamden obviously very good. Use its offense, use its rush game to beat Trumbull. But this time Ludlowe just absolutely obliterated. Now, ask me what happened in the game. I couldn't tell you because we don't get any information from Fairfield Ludlowe. They don't send a box score. Their preview was very, very short. The only way I know anything about this game, 270 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, and another 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns by the Falcons. They also got 5 turnovers. They have 4 pickoffs against Hamden. But the only reason why I know any of this is because it's from Hamden's huddle, their huddle stats. So I couldn't tell you anything much more about Ludlowe. I know they're screaming for attention. Guys, got to help us out. So moving on, that's a great win by them. But, they played New Canaan this week, 35-14.
Yeah, they got New Canaan. Congratulations to that. The other team in Fairfield. Again, like you said, we don't really know much about them.
Couldn't tell you.
Here's the thing. There's 136 high school football teams in the state. Send in box scores. Yeah. This is not a complicated thing. And a lot of teams do. I think we got 44 this week.
Amazing.
Which was incredible. But don't complain. Don't send DMs that we're not getting this, we're not getting that. If you're not going to help, then you're not going to get it. Yeah. So, help us help you.
Help us help you.
Was it from Jerry Maguire? Right? Yeah. Help us help you. Okay? If you don't see your box score in the roundup, we didn't get it from you. Okay, and especially if your preview is going to be thin, we don't know anything about this team. There's nothing on Huddle. There's nothing on Max Prep. There's nothing. So they don't even exist in my mind.
Big win, great win.
It's a great win for them, and I'm very excited for the New Canaan game.
Yeah, that should be fun. 3-0 versus 2-1. Does Ludlow have a shot here? Now I look at it. We'll see.
I'm sure they got a good roster. I know the Jacobs kid is good. He came from Ward. That wasn't on the preview.
Moving on, some other results that were really Berlin. We said at the top, Berlin. We had Ty Jenkins on, and I'm sorry, Ty. Toby Lavender ran for 83 yards and had a touchdown. He also caught a touchdown. Kyle Melville, 4 catches for 120. Mason DeMorrow, 30-yard fumble recovery return. He ripped it out of the kid's hands. Bunnell was only in this game thanks to a 37-yard pick 6 by Michael Ricketts. Otherwise, they were not in this game at all. A really big win there by Berlin. None of us picked Berlin in the picks. So, I saw them against Wilton, and I didn't think they had it in them from here. So we were all about Bunnell last week. Well, I'm all about Berlin this week. Nice job by them. Speaking of other games, Manchester, speaking of teams that don't send anything in, we have no idea about Manchester, except I can go on Max Preps at least and see that junior quarterback Emmanuel Sample was 12 of 20 for 268 yards and 2 TDs rushing. And Julian Henderson ran for 100 yards on 12 carries and scored 3 touchdowns as they beat a pretty good McMahon team, 41-27. Manchester's 2-0. They also sacked McMahon 4.5 times. 2 picks, 8 passes defense. A really nice job by Manchester. Couldn't tell you much beyond that because we didn't hear from their coach in the preseason. So shout out here for a couple of big wins. Bethel winning its first game in 16 games, 2 years with a 28-27. They had a rally to beat Plainville 28-27. Josh McComber threw a pair of touchdown passes and ran for another in the fourth quarter. They got the extra point there, and they beat them at Ralph DeSantis Field. Bethel with its first win in their alliance game, playing over Plainville. Very good job by them. Derby, Pete, let's move out of the alliance for a second. Derby had a, 47-2 victory over Wilby. Was that right? I think something like that. But really nice job for Jeremy Clark and the Red Raiders. Long time coming. They haven't won since 2019, including they forfeited half their 2021 schedule. People thinking, is this the end of Derby for good? Well, they got their first win since then. So big. They were 0 last year. That was a big step for them.
Awesome for them. That was one of the great scores to see. High school football is better when Derby is competing. So it's just one, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
And jumping back to the alliance piece, the last one I'll talk about is Draven Roberts. Remember this name. Draven Roberts of East Hartford just lit up Danbury in a 52-32 victory over the Hatters. This kid had I said it in the guide. They averaged, Pete, they were, I think they were 0-2. They averaged 42 points a game on offense, and they were 0-2. And it was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. They lost both their games like shootouts. This time they finally get the shootout victory. The quarterback had 7. He counted for 7 touchdowns. He ran for 5, and he threw for another 2. All told, he had over nearly 400 yards of total offense for first-year coach Benny Foles. 52-32 just absolutely lit them up. My goodness, what a performance by them.
He's putting up similar numbers as our boy Raquan Tompkins did back in 2018.
Yeah, very similar.
Video game like numbers. Now, look, we spoke to Kevin Frederick and his coaching staff at the Greenwich prep game week 1. They just came back from beating East Hartford, and he said, that offense was really good, and the quarterback was pretty good. And it was nice he got a little love this past weekend because he's been putting up some great numbers.
So that wraps up, Pete, the alliance games. Let's take a quick look at the scoreboard. We look at the overall scoreboard. Another good week for the SWC, although they, maybe some of their SEC games were against some of the weaker teams in that conference. But that's not bad overall. The SWC 17-6, pretty good. SEC 16-14, nice showing. The FCIAC with nice. It wasn't a total rebound, but a nice rebound week for the FCIAC. They finished 16-16. Overall for the 2 big weeks. The ECC 8-11, the CTC, which didn't play for, and the CCC coming in at 14-22 overall. If you want to look at some of the scores, the CCC went 1-6 against the SEC. Yikes. Obviously, East Haven beat Northwest Catholic. Brantford needed a rally to beat Hartford Public. Yeeps. But Guilford smoking Ram. I don't know when Guilford's going to lose another game. Wait. Don't answer that. Lyman Hall winning big. So the SEC did very well against the CCC. The CCC had a little bit better against the FCIAC. We talked about Greenwich beating Maloney, but Wilton beat Platt. Stanford had a big night beating Simsbury, which is struggling. Talk about East Hartford. Manchester we talked about. South Windsor, Enfield winning. New Canaan winning, and then Hall. So that was a kind of a toss-up there. So the CCC wasn't great, but wasn't bad either. The SWC basically was a push between the two of them. I think they were both 4-4. So that was fascinating. Berlin obviously being the big one. New Milford beating Middletown, Bloomfield beating Masuk, and then Bethel knocking off them. So we had the one forfeit, Notre Dame Fairfield forfeiting to Lewis Mills. Tallinn had 2 pick sixes and a 36-7 win over Weston. So that are your alliance games. Now we go back to our regularly scheduled programming. Everyone goes back to their corners until we see each other again, most likely in the playoffs. So that wraps it up for this alliance week. Pete, the second big one, we have only about, I think, 14 games left over the course of the rest of the season. So let's kind of turn into look at week 4. And one of the big games, there's not a ton of big games coming up, but one of the big games, thanks to a big win over last week, it wasn't an alliance game. It was Morgan's new co-op with Old Saybrook and Westbrook. They defeated Capital Prep Achievement First 56-28. Kind of a shocking score. We heard from their coach, Kevin Sullivan, who we'll bring on the podcast right now. Here he is. They are 3-0. They're scoring the most points in the state right now. Here is Kevin Sullivan of, what are they? They're the MSW. We'll have to ask
Huskies.
We'll have to ask him. Joining us now on the show is the third-year head coach of Morgan, but the first-year head coach of the Morgan Saybrook Westbrook. Do you have a nickname, Coach? I don't even know. It's Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, welcome to the Meat Grinder. How you doing? Do you have a nickname?
First, thanks for having me, but right now it's just MSW. That's all we got right now. Short and sweet.
You're not the Huskies anymore? You're not the Rams, the Husky Rams, or the...
Technically,
the Husky...
right now, we are the Huskies.
Okay.
I feel like the Husky Rams might be offensive to Rams.
And I think it might be offensive to Huskies, too.
Well, anyway. No, like a Husky Ram.
Oh. I don't know. Is there any... I personally, we've talked about it before. I want co-ops with more than 2 schools that they have to go to a regional name. So you guys should be the Shoreline All-Stars. I know,
okay. Let's chill on the All-Stars part, but
you're the best, best of the best of 3 towns in the Shoreline, the heart of the Shoreline. Old Saybrook, Westbrook, Clinton. I mean,
I get it, but we are 3-17 combined. I wouldn't subject that as All-Stars.
Well, I mean, well, you guys are off to a great, regardless. Right now, you're playing like an all-star team. You are off to a great start, 3-0. You just beat Capital Prep, our darling team. And we get a text message from Kevin where all hell is breaking loose across the state. And Kevin is texting Pete and I to taunt us with our bad Capital Prep pick. I am thinking that they've turned the corner. They can't, Morgan and Old City, they can't possibly beat this team. They've been practicing, blah, blah, blah. Sure enough, I look at the score at a shootout. Coach, what is it? What has been the key to your big start here? You've got 2 rival programs, 3 schools. How do you get them all together to start playing well like this?
I mean, luckily for the most part, a lot of the kids knew each other. We were able to co-op kind of the JV teams last year and, kind of able to practice a little bit together. So we were able to, build off of that. And then, for the most part, at Morgan, we had a fair amount coming back. Our quarterback came back, Tyler Baldwin, Jack Nye, our running back, Casey Corrigan, all returners. Logan Ryan, who's been our left tackle. He's a junior now. He's been our left tackle since he was a freshman. And then, just Old Saybrook, came in, with a few more pieces, up front, and then across the defensive backfield and receivers, we just, have it. Everybody knew it was something that had to kind of be done if everybody wanted to be competitive and, be able to have the opportunity to play football.
When did you get the idea, or when did you start to hear that this might be a possibility? How long ago, and and who approached who, and how did it all come about?
So it's funny you say that. The idea was actually on the table after my first year. Old Saybrook graduated a bunch, and so did we. We weren't sure what the freshman numbers were going to be, so it was actually put on the table, I think, 2 years ago, and then finally went through this past year between the 3 board of eds and everything.
What was it? How were your numbers doing at the time?
Our numbers were, decent, but after my first year, we graduated. I think it was 15 seniors, and for Class S school, that's a lot of kids. And I think at the time in our freshman class, we had about 12, which was good, but we were really thin in our current senior class, which I think, even with Old Saybrook, we only have about, I think it's 7 or 8 seniors. And then, our sophomore class is a decent size and our junior class is a decent size.
Football numbers have been dropping. I know that the leadership of the state, the High School Coaches Association, have tried to find ways to kind of like boost interest. You definitely had people who are not as, I even talked to friends of mine. They don't, maybe not as many people like their kids playing football anymore. There's a lot, risk involved. They don't want to deal with it anymore. And I'm sure that kind of pervades into a community like yours, where they don't want to deal with it. And then, you're a small school. Any type of like reduction in numbers must be a massive hit. So, there's validity to that. Yeah,
absolutely. The other thing too, with, Saybrook and Clinton, they both have pretty good boys soccer programs too, which definitely defeats doesn't help us. And then, at the time, there is no youth program in Clinton or Old Saybrook. We're in the process of trying to, figure that out so we can, help grow the sport, from the ground up. It sounds crazy, but, we don't get the kids till they're freshmen. So, most of the time that's their first year playing football.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me about how you became the head coach. I mean, I guess they were kind of like in a flux. So was it because Morgan was going to be the host? Is that why you were there, or?
Yeah. So so I think for the most part, we were kind of the host school. We had the more kids, and, I technically have been there longer than, the old Sabre coach was. I think it was his first year last year. So I kind of had the 2 year, jump a little bit on it. But that's how it worked out. I got lucky.
And was it like, Herb Brooks with the United States hockey team, having to take making them do laps until they realized they were playing for one town or one program?
No, but we still have rumblings of it. There's definitely some bumps. There's been, a lot of bumps in the road and whatever. It's crazy to think about it, but the kids, buy into it a lot quicker than, sometimes some of the adults do. Because towns have lots of traditions and everything. And this is something completely new for everybody. But for the most part, the kids have been all in. It was funny you say that, like one of the kids the other day, old Sabre kids the other day go, "Coach, man, we hated you guys last year. We just wanted to beat you so bad." I'm like, well, look at you now.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Miracle is a great reference. I was going to say maybe, and obviously a little bit different for obvious reasons, but like remember the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Were there any when you guys had camp, were the Morgan kids sitting at a different lunch table than the old Sabre kids? Did you make them take the same bus? We pull a little Denzel?
We definitely had to kind of, because naturally kids are going to gravitate towards, kids they know, they've been hanging out with their whole life. So we kind of had to bust that a little bit the first couple of days. And, lucky for us, we had, spring and summer. We kind of knew it was happening. So, summer conditioning, they just naturally just start, hey, I like this kid. We're friends. We kind of get along. We've played each other in football, on the basketball court, baseball. So, we've kind of built a relationship. So we got lucky in that aspect for sure.
How was the combining though of you had some returners, you had your quarterback, you had your running back, you had your wide receivers, your linemen, and now they had their own quarterback, their own receivers, their own linemen. Mm-hmm. How was kind of pushing that together where you have two kids who were coming in being like, hey, this is my year to be the starting running back. And guess what? There's only one ball.
Absolutely. Definitely, we've had, and that's what's been great about the program itself is kind of, we've been able to bring in, more competition, and competition brings out the best in everybody. They've had, and we've kind of complemented each other very well for the most part. Things that we needed, they kind of had, things we had, they kind of needed. We were lucky. Their quarterback graduated last year. He was, only a 1 year starter, but we brought, Tyler was coming back this year. He was an all conference, quarterback last year, coming in after Drew. And then, Casey's been our starting running back this is my third year. So for 3 years, he's been our starting running back. And Jack Nye is Jack Nye. So there was, he's that guy.
Yeah.
And then, they brought in kids like, Bart Statue, who's been, an offensive tackle and defensive end for us, who's been freaking great. Wes Percival, who's, been a great receiver and safety for us. So, we've kind of been able to, compete a little bit more and, kind of fill in the places that we were missing.
Jack, compete a little bit more. You to go off, competing a little bit more. You guys are 3-0 combined last year. Both programs were 3-17, and Morgan had all 3 wins. So, obviously the results, the proof is in the pudding, right? Haddam Killingworth 44-20, Coventry 54-0, Capital Prep you hanging 56 points. You guys going into last week were like the second highest scoring offense in the state. Mm-hmm. Right. And now, you put up another 50-point win. You got Cromwell. You're kind of getting into the the thick of the Pequot. But
Absolutely.
What's the vibes like? Do the kids feel like, does this group feel like, hey, we can make a run here. We can get in the state playoffs.
Hey, we're just taking it a game at a time. We know the stretch that we have coming up. Let's not be honest. We've got Cromwell coming up this week, and that is the most, is the most important game we got right now. Cromwell has been the creme de la creme. They've been, the king of the Pequot for the most part, if you want to say. I came in and they've, whooped my butt twice. So we're not trying to get ahead of ourselves. We got them. You look at the rest of our schedule, I think we have 6 playoff teams on our schedule from last year. Cromwell, SMSA, Rockville, Ellington, North Branford, Valley, Valley was in the state championship last year. So it's like, we got Coggins, which is a rivalry. It's like it's a tough road, but we just got to take it one game at a time, really, at this point.
Yeah, tell me about Cromwell Portland. Obviously, they have defied expectations so far. Maybe Randall was giving us a little subterfuge sitting there. Oh no, we were building. Maybe rebuilding for them is like going 8-2 or something. But obviously, Yearwood, Emeka Yearwood, has been great for them, and then they got a lot of players who've been stepping up. What challenges do they pose?
Oh, they're first and foremost, Randall has done a great job with that program. He's, got them competing for a state championship every year right now for the past, 2 years. So he's done a great job. He's got a great coaching staff with them. They do a great job with those kids. Those kids really buy into their program. And, they come out, they play fast. They are physical as, physical is going to get. They play great defense. That's for sure what they hang their hat on. And, every time you look, it's like, oh, Teddy Williams is gone. Owen Brunk's gone. Maybe we got a shot. And now, it's not much rebuilding. It's more like reloading.
Yeah, absolutely. Then they start off, you guys play, let's see, 3 more home games, but you end the season off with 3 road games in your last 4 games. And then your home game is versus North Branford, who's, making waves too. That is a tough schedule. You got a long way to go, but
absolutely
so far, so good. Coach, we appreciate you coming on and joining us. Give a little time here. I'm sure we'll have our eyes on that game against Cromwell Portland, and who knows, man, we could be seeing you down the road a lot more. But Coach,
you guys appreciate it.
Yeah,
Coach, thank you. Thank you so much. Just quickly though, I want a quick answer on this.
Oh.
What is this team doing on Thanksgiving since you guys aren't playing each other this year? Are you guys doing a fun team day? Maybe go to the field. What are you guys going to do Thanksgiving morning now that you guys aren't playing?
That's a great question, and I don't really have an answer for you right now. We'll see where the road brings us. That's a long road off. Hopefully we could be, sitting back, kind of scoreboard watching.
Would you rather play a Thanksgiving Day rivalry game if you could, or are you looking forward to this, having the week off?
It's funny you say that because when I was, played at Holy Cross, it was like a big thing. You played Wilton on Thanksgiving, and then, through the years of coaching, we play, at Newington, we didn't play Wethersfield on Thanksgiving. We didn't play, at Morgan, we didn't even play Old Saybrook on Thanksgiving. So it's like, it's going to be kind of nice to have, that week off, and hopefully, it's a nice week off for us to rest up.
That's right. You were a junior on that Holy Cross team, right? In 06,
yep.
The one that won it all with Mulrooney and Croce and all those dudes.
Yep.
We were talking before we had this. The NVL has never been better. Like that 2-year stretch, 06, 07. I know you're biased, but I happen to think that. I don't know what you think.
Oh, I absolutely 100% agree. The teams we had to go through that year was, it made it seem dominant, but we still lost one to that Ansonia team with Alex Thomas and all those guys was a really good football team that I'm sure, many of our guys wish we could have back.
Yeah, no, that was that NVL championship game was like an all timer. Just
the
was
monsoon.
Great. Yeah, and the monsoon. I stayed home. And I regret it ever since. I remember staying home and blogging about it when that was a thing. Live blog on join us for updates on the NVL championship game. I was listening to Bob Sagendorf, who just retired. Bob Sagendorf called the game. What was it? That game was at Wolcott, I want to say.
At Wolcott, yep. It was windy. It was rainy. I'll never forget. I caught a kick in warm-ups, and I ran it back and went to flip it to the center about 5 yards away from me, and the wind just took it to the other side.
Yeah,
it was nuts.
And Alex Thomas went wild, but that Holy Cross, he was all-timer. Obviously, just a great. You still talk to those. Mulrooney's doing great. Who's last I saw was at Lock Havens, right? And Croce is up there at Santa Maria where Mulrooney was. Geez, they've just been, it's a good football. A lot of good football guys came out of that, and now look at you.
Let's
absolutely.
Not
forget you, Coach.
Hey,
okay.
I'm not anywhere near them yet, but they're still Coach Giampetruzzi's still got it going. They're still competing down there in the NWL. So.
They had a rough week the week before against Nagy, but I'm sure we'll see him back again. But
yeah, absolutely.
All right, Kevin. We appreciate you coming
Thanks,
on,
guys.
giving us a little bit, and good luck this Friday against Cromwell Portland. So we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. So Pete, Cromwell Portland plays host to Morgan Saybrook Westbrook Huskies. The Shoreline All-Stars at Pearson Park Friday night. Get your tickets now. Another big game in the Pequot.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you listen to the Pick'ems pod this week because we will be picking that game again. We'll be picking a Morgan game again. So hopefully maybe we get it right this time because we both went 0 for last week.
Yeah, I know. I did not do well. I did not do well. I did not. There's some guys who did well. You have to go find that all out. People have that ready for you. Thursday mornings. Be there or be square. Just quickly looking at the schedule, Pete. We got Sheriff Cheshire at Fairfield Prep. This could be it for the Jesuits playing on that field again. Who knows? We'll see what happens with Matt Jeffrey and Jeffrey Gonzalez in that one. Bullard Colby plays Northwest United in a big CTC game. Looking out a lot of people in the ECC say, "What about us? What about us? You guys don't cover all that. You guys, let's start winning some games here." Let's you want to make a splash on this podcast. You got to, get into the top 10 or at least knock off some guys. So far, the ECC's kind of been a mixed bag. North Haven going on Fitch, just absolutely obliterating them in that game. So, East Lyme at Stony is kind of a big one. Anyway, but Darien, Norwalk, I guess. Norwalk is 101. West Haven, Shelton, obviously, and is the big one. But Bunnell, Masuk, very big for Bunnell all of a sudden, but it might be even big for Masuk. Because both these teams coming off losses, chance for someone to bounce back.
Yeah, the ECC, it's just not a great year for them, I think. Killingly, Killingly has been the darling, all right, of the ECC the last couple of years. They went 0-2 in their only 2 Alliance games. And actually, they went 0-2 in their first 2 Alliance games. They have Thames River in a third Alliance game on October 13th. But looking at that schedule, they're probably going to go unbeaten in the ECC. So what does that say about the ECC then?
Yeah, right. And that's the one thing you can say about the Alliance. At least it kind of exposes you to a lot bigger, better schedules.
But it only works if everyone's involved because the NVL remains unexposed.
Well, I will say this. If I'm the NVL, I wouldn't want to join either.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them either.
Look at what the CIAC says. This is what you need to do to get in.
No. Oh, I don't blame them. I don't blame them, but I also don't vote for Ansonia. So, 0 points.
Right. Anyway, well, I do. Anyway, so that is basically what we're looking at for this week, Pete. I'm glad to take a little bit of a breather, I think, this week. Obviously West Haven Shelton's going to be big, and then, which I'm going to say that you might be going to. I don't know. Where are you going this week, Pete?
I have no idea yet. We'll see. Still trying to figure out, all the other parts of covering the games first. So that takes precedent before, we shuffle what we want to do. But also, I think, and I want to speak for you, I think we both might be at Boyle on Saturday to see Stanford.
Yes.
Not a big Saturday schedule. So I think we're both interested to see what the Black Knights got.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested. And maybe Donnie has a great game. You'll be expecting a text, Coach. Come on the show. Come on the pod. We'll have to see how well Kevin does in his game against Trumbull. If they lose, maybe you don't want to come up. Who knows?
Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up for week 3 of Connecticut High School football. We're on to week 4. Thank you for everyone who's reached out to me and Pete to say how much you love the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for Pete Paguaga. I'm Sean Patrick Bowley. This has been the Beat Grinder on GameTimeCT.
Love you all.